Hey everybody, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. It's Lisa Moore with Unapologetically-Me, and I'm coming to you guys with a video because I felt something on my heart that the Lord wanted me to say. And I want to talk about two things. One is from minions to sheep, and the other is just coming out of seasons with people that we once knew to serve God, to love God, and so much more. So anyways, I'm going to get right to it. Earlier, probably maybe about 2 to 3 weeks ago, I was driving down the street and I've been noticed it, but I guess now like it had really came to my mind, like, why am I always seeing minions? Like the whole theme of Disney kind of this year was minions. Around our town downtown, we always have a theme every year. It was minions. In a few people's yard I seen minions, and minions is an old thing, so it's nothing new, but it just seemed like that was the theme of everybody was minions. And I'm like, Lord, why is everybody minions? But I'm not thinking too deep on it. I'm just driving, whatever. And the Lord really was just dealing with me throughout the year that everything and everybody has been treating people like minions. In the world system, in the government, they look at us as minions. Whatever they throw out there, because we know that they do, to social media or to the world, or what other celebrities, it's almost like we're little guinea pigs, like we're little minions. And as the minions, they don't really have a voice. They just make this little weird little buzzy noises and things like that, whatever. And it's been a lot of buzz around the world. There's been a lot of flopping to whatever they throw out there, and whatever the celebrities kind of throw out there. It's been like we're like little minions, even when we try not to be. You kind of just flop to the little things that's going on, whatever little trends is on Facebook, whatever everybody's talking about, whatever. Even with the food supply is terrible. A lot of chemicals, and we're treated like little minions, like little lab minions, to do the dirty work, pretty much. To do the dirty work of their agenda, to do the dirty work of, sometimes, and let's be honest, the church's agenda. A lot of people that's just with, and religion is not a bad saying, but this religious acts that the church has, the world has been kind of flopping to that. This culture of you can do whatever you don't want, whatever makes you feel good. We do a lot of, what do you call it? We do a lot of conferences with women. We're pushing a lot of feminine agendas. A lot of times we knowingly do it, and sometimes unknowingly do it, even in the church. Like, we're creating little minions, and we don't really want people to have their own ministries, and we don't really want people, and the Lord talking, well, I'm going to do a whole podcast series on bridging the gap, bridging the gap between the millennials and Gen Z, and the baby boomers, whatever. And it's a lot of bridging the gap that the Lord is trying to do, because it's a lot of things that between that gap that has stopped a lot of what God is trying to do in the church and doing the body and doing the world, using the church to do that. And it's been a breach in the situation. There's a straight and narrow that the Lord has us on, and there's been a breach. Just like when you're birthing a baby and the baby is breached to where they're not head first going out the way it's planned to come out, the way birth is planned to be, and God cannot continue to move forth in the birth because there's been a breach. And so he's bridging that gap. So again, we've been like little minions, and that's these themes and things like that we see around the world are not coincidental. They literally treating us like minions out here. But the Lord is going to take us from minions back to sheep. And he says, my sheep know my voice, and a stranger voice they will not follow. And I feel like that is what God is bringing us back to. Some people are maybe out of it. I don't know, we can say delusional, we can say worldly, even in the church, even outside of the church, a lot of different things. But you have a lot of us unintentionally, I'm sorry to say it, even myself, we're still treated like minions. And this last year, it's been a lot, not saying we have been following and flopping to what the world is doing or saying, but we find ourselves commenting on it. We find ourselves posting it. We all find ourselves talking about the Will Smith slap. We still find ourselves talking and getting extremely distracted. And in this year, as we've heard many people say, that God is really bringing his people back, and he's downloading something inside of our spirit, and we're not going to shrink back anymore. Because I find myself shrinking back. That's why I'm missing so many videos that I have literally recorded and not have put out there, because I did find myself shrinking back, because there's a lot that the world don't want to hear, and when it comes to the church, they expect us to be silent, and everything is, oh, you're thinking too deep, or you're this, or you're that, or you have certain forms of the church where they're pushing their own little agenda of how they want things to be and getting back to normal service. And God is like, I'm not doing that anymore. And us that won't follow, they find us to be rebellious to them, not to the Lord. So in this season, it's going to be a lot of people coming from being minions, flopping to whatever the world is doing, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. But God is going to bring us back to being sheep again. We're going to jump back to the voice of the Lord. We're going to get back on our face. We're going to get back to hearing him. We're going to get back to our hearts being clear, our minds being clear. It's been so much fog because it's been purposely put out here, again, amongst the world and amongst the church, that treat us like little minions. So I just want us to really get on our face, and I want us to really, if we have to log out of social media, if you have to, I'm not saying really distance yourself from everybody, but be in a place of really getting on your face a lot more, because God is going to download so much more inside of us. And we're not minions. We are sheep. And we're not going to be scared, and we're not going to push ourselves back and shrink ourselves back because people don't want to hear it. Everybody is not your audience. Everybody is not my audience. But there is a people for each and every one of us. There's a people for me to reach. There's something that you have down in you that I can't reach. In God's, look at it like your children. I have children. I cannot deal with each child the exact same way. Some of my kids are more sensitive than others, and I have to deal with them differently. And some of my kids are a little more tougher, and I have to deal with them differently. Every child needs something different, and that's exactly how God views us. We all need something different. I may be a little tougher, and you can give it to me raw, but there may be other people in the body that may be doing wrong, and God is like, I can't give it to them like that because it'll run them away and break them. So he has different ministers, preachers, pastors, evangelists that can reach out and reach a certain person and can speak to their spirit in a way that draws them back to God and love and not damage them. It doesn't mean that a lot of us are wrong. Some of us are a little more stern, and some of us has to use discernment, and a lot of us have to go to God and say, how do I reach these people? Or even if this is the person that you need to be reaching, that is okay. And we have to stop making a big difference of there being so many different ministries, and ministries is not always on a pulpit. It can just be me right here in the car talking to you. Excuse me, it's so dry, y'all. I'm sorry. Whatever. But it can just be me sitting here in the car talking to you. We have to allow people to do what God is telling them. If they're not directly doing something outrageous against the Lord, you cannot go and tell people that God did or did not call them to do whatever he's called them to do. We have to get out of that. And we're becoming like little minions, like I said, to whatever it is that the world wants us to do, and feud and fuss and tell people who is and is not right, when we all have a people to reach individually. Another thing I want to talk about, talking about that, is bridging the gap. Like I said, bridging the gap is a big thing that the Lord is doing. I've said this way at the beginning of the year, and then now I see a lot of people speaking on it. So I am going to speak on it now. The fact that he's bridging the gap. A lot of older people, and I'm not saying we don't have wisdom, because we do, but a lot of older people have been around a longer time to where God has given them so much wisdom, so much understanding, so many things they've been through, so many things that they've experienced, the spiritual realm, a lot of different things. Not to say that we're not experiencing those things and may be experiencing greater things whenever God, downloads inside of all of us. But they do have a seasonal wisdom that we need. Check this. We have a visual. We have a visual. We have more of a connection with this generation. We have what you're handing down the baton to us, to where we have something that can reach more people, because we need this gap to be bridged amongst them and us younger ones, to where we can make that flow happen again to the next generation. We need that flow back. We cannot be so hard-headed in our younger generation. I'm talking about us 30s and 40s. We can't be so hard-headed to where we can't be taught anything. We don't want the wisdom. We don't want to serve anymore. We don't want to get back in the church. We don't want anybody telling us anything. We have to get out of that. But the later generation, they also have to get, the older generation has to get out of that. We're going to do it this way, and there is no new way, and we got to do it the way things used to be, and we got to get on the usher board, and God is not doing that anymore. We know how to reach the people, and you have the wisdom to help us do it. So that is bridging the gap and really creating the flow that God needs to come back to the church. But and don't get me wrong, because I'm only in my 30s, and I also said, I'm being honest, this generation irks me sometimes, even though I'm part of it. They really do irk me sometimes. But you can't keep on saying that. You can't keep on telling the generation you don't like this generation, you can't stand this generation, because I found myself saying things like that, and then turn around and think you're going to reach this generation. You're part of your generation. If they're hurting and God is trying to reach them, we're all hurting. If they're doing something crazy, or, and God is trying to use this body to shift, because just because somebody is ignorant to the fact of what God wants us to do and how he wants us to do it, does not make them bad people. Doesn't mean that they won't be able to come to Christ, because there's a time where I was ignorant. There's a time when you were ignorant. There's a time where anybody seasonal was ignorant at some point. So we have to give that grace. And I feel like the older generation, and even those younger ones, have to stop looking down. We're causing more friction in the church than we even understand by the way we view things. We understand that this world is out of control. And to be honest, it's not even just this generation, because a lot of the older generation have been cutting up too, and trying to be like the younger people, and trying to go with the flop of the world just as well. So it's not just the new generation. My point is, we have to bridge this gap of constant opinion all the time, and there is no mercy, there is no grace, there is no love, there is just nothing but judgment. Not that all judgment is bad, but I'm talking about judgment in a way that makes the younger generation feel unaccepted, as if God is only speaking to you, that God's only did things back in the day. He may be doing things different, and everybody may be walking in a different light or whatever. I'm not talking about new age crap. I'm not talking about that. But I'm saying we have a new way of reaching the people, and you can't be so stuck in your ways where you refuse to let us tell you anything. You refuse to let us get up on the stage in church. You refuse to help develop our gifts. You refuse to do any of this thing because y'all want it done your way, to where when you guys are gone, because one day we'll all leave this earth, there will be nothing to pass down, because y'all want everything your way. Y'all don't want to pass the baton. Y'all think so ill of us. That is why the gap is not bridging. It's not one person's problem. It's not one generation's problem. We all equally have a problem, many problems, that we're stopping the gap from being bridged. Where we're stopping for the younger generation, they're going to see God in a major way. But I honestly feel in my heart, it's going to start with us bridging the gap. When they see us, the same thing like children see parents, when they see us bridging this gap and they see us getting along and they see the flow, it's going to flow right down in them. And they're going to, I'm not offended with the younger generation taking off more than we are. I'm more offended if I don't do what I need to do for them to be able to do that. And I feel like that's something that the older generation has to understand. Stop being so offended to see if we're going to do something better than what you did, or, we're taking this in a different way. We're not watering down the gospel. This is a generation. We're not going to water down the gospel. I don't care what it looks like right now. God is going to use us in major ways, and you should be proud that we're a product of what God has done in you, and you're passing down to us. And I'm not going to be offended if my children or my children's children I want that to flow. We have to stop comparing ourselves to each generation as if we're offended if they do something more than what we have done. That is crazy, that is ignorant, and that is exactly what's stopping this gap. Because the younger generation got an opinion of y'all, and y'all have opinion of us. When really we both need what each other have to ignite that ignition and make that roar that God is really trying to push. So yeah, it's time to bridge the gap. It's enough of the mess. And I'm going to do a whole podcast on bridging the gap and the constant little ups, downs, mishaps, all this different stuff that I feel in my heart that God has given me that is kind of stopping this bridge that he's trying to repair. I'm sorry, y'all. I talk extremely fast, and I'm getting out of my appointment, so I'm really just speeding it all up in the car before I go back in the house with the kids. Okay, another thing I want to talk about is I said it before. I really don't know if I posted the video, because like I told y'all, I've recorded so many videos and I have them in my phone, and again, I'm not shrinking back anymore, but you know, so I don't know if I said this already at the beginning of this year. I remember recording a video, but there's going to be a lot of I guess moving around the chess pieces. I'm going to say that because there's spiritual mothers that I had, there's spiritual fathers and mothers that you may have had, there's elders in the church, there's younger generations. There are going to be a lot of people that we knew, just like a lot of celebrities have been, that was serving God and really loving God at some point in their life, and the Lord told me it's because of the small compromises. Constant small compromises will have you to the point where you're completely walking away from God and don't even know it. And you think that you have this relationship that you don't really have anymore. And it's people that have been walking with God 15 years, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, however long. You may have gotten with that person at some point in their walk, and they really was authentically loving on God. But because of the small compromises, they have walked away. They have started doing things, and they started misusing scripture and things like that to make whatever they're doing okay, and kind of put it and start using. I told my husband, I think a lot of us are using looking at the glass half empty instead of half full. We use things like David and Jesus' situation and anybody in the Bible we can possibly think of and say, oh, well, they were doing this and they were doing that. Using it as an excuse of why we're doing what we're doing, while we're walking away from the church, while we're doing things that's not of God, to excuse what we're doing. Instead of looking at the glass half full as if they were doing those things and God brought them out. Now, I'm not going to intentionally sin, but when God bring me out, not that we don't all sin, I'm talking about these big sins that we know what we're doing, we're trying to make excuses, that God is going to use that to bring me out. He's not showing us and giving us a book of the Bible to say, oh, they did it, so now you can do it and it's okay. He gave us that to say, because of this world has you already in sin and you're born into sin, that you can come out like David and whoever else in the Bible that came out. He's not giving us that to do it and say it's okay. But that's what we make it, because we're looking at the glass half empty instead of half full. My point is, those people that are doing those things, and that you have to pay attention. I have had a spiritual mother that I love. I have had, many people, even celebrities that we know. Some of them are gospel artists. We're not calling them out because that's not what we're here to do. But there's a lot of people who started with God, and because we're not paying attention and we loved them in the beginning and we know that they started with God, not to say we don't still love them now, but we continue to follow these people, not paying attention to the fact that they have walking away from God. We're not paying attention to the fact that they're not even really serving God like they were, they was at first. And I'm not saying we don't all have bumps, but they're intentionally doing things and making excuses as to why they walked away from God. And because we're so blind, and because we love them and because we cling to them, again, like little minions, we don't understand when they're no longer even walking with God. And now some of us look at those things and we start to make excuses and we start to see how much we can get away with, and we're not knowing we're starting to compromise. Pay attention to the small compromises. Not talking about even just in people, but even in yourself. When people start to walk away from God, you pray for them, you love on them, but you have to identify that, because if not, you'll find yourself still connected to those people. And God had to disconnect me from a couple of people that were no longer walking with him. Do I still love them? Absolutely. Do I still pray for them? Absolutely. Do I treat them any different? Absolutely not. But I knew that I could not be connected with them so strongly as I was before. Maybe it's just for a season. Maybe it's for a while. That is on God, and that is up to this person when they come back to God. But There's going to be a lot of famous preachers, pastors, ministers, whoever, that have walked away from God, and God is going to make, there is a gap that God is making with that. Either you continue to follow after them, either you continue to watch them, you continue to listen to the mess that they're talking, and you will slowly but surely fall away as well. Or you can follow them, and then God says in his word, I'm just paraphrasing, that if you have itching ears and you continue to follow that, even if after God gave you many warnings to not, and you see all the signs and you continue, God will silence his voice and allow you to walk after that person. He will allow you to do that. Or you can separate yourself, come out from amongst them, and still pray for them and still love on them and allow God to use you. I'm sorry, y'all. I know this is probably extremely fast. I'm saying so much. I'm trying to get back to my videos. I'm trying to get back to being obedient. I just come from my appointment, so I'm sorry. And my camera still broke, so I'm sorry for the fog in the camera. But yeah, this is just what I kind of wanted to talk about, the 3 things of from minions to sheep, back to sheep, bridging the gap, and coming away from those who are falling away from God. You know, you still love on them, you still pray for them. We give grace, we give, God, we ask for God's mercy upon us and upon them, but at the same time, we are not going to play this game and follow after them like we don't see what they're doing because they are somebody famous, or we've been following them for years and they helped us out of bad situations. We get that. But when you see it, open your eyes to it and stop being little minions and go back to being sheep. Go back to being sheep. We're following after God's voice. And to no stranger, to no man will we follow. We will not listen to no other stranger's voice. Only the voice of the Lord. I don't care. And it's another thing really quick. The other generation, I get it when sometimes just use wisdom. I'm just gonna say that. Be careful with what I say. But use wisdom. Not everybody is jumping in ministries and jumping in things too early to where God didn't give them that. You don't know what God gave somebody. We need to worry about ourselves. We don't know what God gave somebody. We don't know what video God told them to do. We say this, and I'm not saying people don't jump into things prematurely. That's not what I'm saying. But I feel like there's a lot of intimidation of the older generation that is always saying, well, God didn't call you to do that, and he's not calling you to be that, and it's not time because you have a 60-day program, or you have a year program that they have to follow before they can be ordained to be that. You're not God. You're not God. And I'm not saying this in a way of being rebellious or being disobedient or, trying to come at, I'm just saying you're not God. I mean, if God gave you a word with somebody that's starting something too soon and you loving on them, please let them know. Talk to them. But don't just assume, because we don't know what God is doing. God has said he will make a rock cry out to him. You don't know. And times and things and seasons are speeding up. I'm not saying for us to speed ourselves up and allow demons to attack us because we're starting something too soon. And if we are, please use wisdom and talk straight to that person. But don't assume because we're young that we're not ready to start something because your program says you have to do this, and this, and that in a certain amount of time. That is your program. That is not God's program. Anyways, I just wanted to say that out of so much love and not out of disrespect, not out of clapping back at anybody or anything like that. That's not where I'm at with it. I love you guys so much. I am starting another channel. This is Unapologetically-Me, and my other channel you can follow is going to be still Unapologetically-Me, but we're healing spiritually. We're healing in our families. We're healing and we're growing even in weight loss. Y'all about to go on my weight loss journey with me, even if y'all don't want to do it. Y'all can encourage me. Y'all can give me some tips. I'm going to be working out. I'm going to be giving words. I'm going to do whatever the Lord tell me to do. But, baby, we about to drop this weight because after 4 kids, So, yeah, y'all going to follow my other channel. Y'all going to go on this journey with me. Y'all might see me mess up. Y'all might see me complain. All that stuff. But, yeah, we going to go on this weight loss journey. So anyways, I'm Unapologetically Me. I want you to be unapologetically you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Love you. Bye.